Welcome back, and joining me for a closer look at what's played out on the market scene today is Robert Towell from Sasfin Wealth. Thank you so much for your time, Rob. Let's actually start with what is happening in Portugal right now. Of course, the European Central Bank Forum is taking place, where central bank officials are gathering. And of course, Jerome Powell being in focus. But I don't know, has the market not really reacted to what he said, and I guess the stance of the central bank at the moment, where they seem to just not be budging on interest rate cuts?
I think he was a little bit more susceptible to cutting rates in the last time he spoke. I think they're going to wait to see about the tariffs next week. So, I mean, next week is the 9th of July. That's when the tariffs are going to kick in or not kick in, depending on how many trade deals are done with Trump. I think that will be the crux that everybody's waiting for. So I don't think he wants to say too much before then. But I think if there were a lot of trade deals and the tariffs didn't kick in full, I think there would be definitely scope for him to cut. I mean, Europe's cut quite a lot this year already. We saw a pause from the UK, but they've also cut earlier in the year. And the US is definitely behind the curve here. So I think if you started to see some type of clarity on the tariffs next week, then I think that gives you scope for cuts from Powell.
Remember the 9th of July. Well, I did see on the JSE, the gold miners were the leaders of the pack today in gains, all of them in green territory, coining it. What's boosted the stock prices of these miners?
Well, I think that the tariffs next week is making people just take a little bit of extra cover and maybe buying some gold. Of course, we still haven't got any clear indication of what's going to happen in the Middle East or in Russia and Ukraine. So people are still buying gold as a safe haven. And then, China is still buying gold, and reserve banks across the world are buying gold. So there's still really strong demand for gold across the board. So I think until, again, really these tariffs next week are going to be the turning point where the people decide to stay with their gold positions or carry on buying gold. But it's definitely a hedge against some risk, and you saw that buying coming straight away after the quarter end.
All right, well, let's go into another miner. That's a PGM miner, Impala Platinum. They came out with an announcement today that they are consolidating the operations of Impala and Impala Bafokeng Resources, of course, the asset that they got from Royal Bafokeng. I would have thought that this would have been the goal anyway, even outside of the lower PGM prices. What does this do exactly for Impala at this point?
I just think it brings the businesses closer together, so they don't have any duplication of positions and jobs, especially on the management side. So if you had a financial director in Royal Bafokeng and you've got one in Impala Platinum, they're consolidated properly. Maybe you only have one position in that area, etc. So I think it just brings costs down, and it makes it easier to manage as a whole. I think while platinum prices and everything's bullish and making a lot of money, it's easy to have two of these running concurrently. But I think it's better for them to consolidate, and that really was what the market was expecting going forward. So, the shares were up today, but I don't think they're up any more than they would have been. I think the market was expecting a consolidation there.
All right. Well, let's go into property counter Hyprop, because they announced that they are selling their 50% stake in Hyde Park Corner here in Johannesburg. Of course, with the option of selling the other 50% stake at a later stage. What is Hyprop's focus right now?
I think they do want larger malls. I think, Hyde Park Corner is a luxury shopping center, and the footfall is not very high, although there are good margins in the business. I think it's a difficult mall to get extra traffic through. So I think they're quite happy to get out of 50% of that now. And I wouldn't be surprised if they sold it all. They want bigger and larger malls in total, and also they want to take some funds offshore and carry on investing, into Europe. I think with the rand, where you see it at 17.60 and maybe strengthening further, it's not a bad opportunity to take rands offshore as well. So they expand into Europe and want rather larger malls in South Africa. So I think it's a good deal for Hyprop.
All right. Just lastly, before we get to your stock pick, something that I noticed with Sea Harvest, Norges Bank saying that they're offloading just a small part of their stake in Sea Harvest. It's quite surprising for me, because a few days ago we did have a further trading update from Sea Harvest saying that they expect really, really strong growth in their bottom line. And I wouldn't think that now would be the time of taking off some of your stake in there. I'd actually be thinking that you'd be adding. Could this maybe just be kind of month-end portfolio balancing?
it could be part of rebalancing for the quarter end. However, it's got very low liquidity in the share, and I think for a big business asset manager like Norges Bank, it's difficult to offload shares at difficult times during the year. So I think when there is a good set of numbers and people want to buy it gives them opportunities to offload stocks. I think it was an opportunity for them to reduce their position. The share also hasn't done very well over the last few years. They come back with some good operational updates. Then the oil price is too high. Then they come back with another operational update, but then the catch is low. So it's a very difficult business. And I think with those last good set of numbers, it allowed a little bit of liquidity to come into the share, allowed Norges to sell some equity there.
Okay, very interesting perspective. Let's get to your stock pick for today. Rob, what are you choosing?
So, I think while you wait for the tariffs next week, I think it's actually cash for this week. However, in the sectors, I still like South African banks. You saw some really good numbers from FirstRand, not so good from Nedbank, but I do think that FirstRand and Capitec are areas to look for. And I think that you could probably offload some of your platinums after this really good rally that we've had in the last few weeks. So I'll be waiting into tariffs, but then I'll still add South African banks.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and giving us detail on what has been happening in the markets today, Rob. That was Robert Towell from Sasfin Wealth.